Hey, vinyl community, welcome once again to the, I guess we're the Five Horsemen now. We've got Gary joining us once again from Physical Format Rock and Roll. We've got Aaron Mutha Alamere. We have JC from JC Flipside Vinyl, and we have Chris from Chris Profi, Musically Obsessed. Once again, we have picked a theme. Today's theme is going to be the 90s. We have picked 5 albums from the 90s and 1 honorable mention. We're going to go in order and give our picks. These might be our favorite albums of the 90s. They might just be 5 albums that we really like and would recommend from the 90s. But as each person goes through their list, you'll hear why they picked what they picked and why it means so much to each of them. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Hello,
All
BC.
right.
I can't wait to see where this video goes tonight.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Hopefully we can keep it a little more kid-friendly this time, but I make no promises.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's lots of kids watching.
Yeah. Aaron has been really out of control in his videos lately, so I think he's been the one. He's been, turning us to the dark side here.
That's all right. That's what I love about Aaron. Aaron is totally,
Yeah.
He takes a walk on the wild side every so often, and that's what
He really does.
spend a lot of my time. So, all right. Well, we'll go in clockwise order, and Chris, you are to my right. So,
All right.
let's hear what your honorable mention is.
I just have this fear that after this video, I'm going to look back and go, crap, that didn't come out in the 90s.
We'll correct you. Don't worry.
I hope I read the date right. Like, these dates are really small, especially on the series. All right, so I picked a band, the Mavericks. I don't think really anybody is talking about the Mavericks. I've not heard anybody, unless I'm just not subscribed to them. But the Mavericks are a kick-ass band. Like, Raul Malo, the lead singer, this guy's voice, I mean, I have a man crush on him. He is amazing. Like, he kind of looks like me, actually, too. I'll show you. Here he's in the middle. What? He's in the middle, the big guy. A little bit.
You're much more handsome, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So anyway, so they're led by Raul Malo. They started out as a straight country band, but they've sort of moved into, they have some Latin flavor to their music. They definitely have some country. They have rockabilly. They just mix a whole bunch of different genres together. This is a great album. And I would say for anybody, if you want to know who the Mavericks, if you want to know what they sound like, just listen to the first track, Dance the Night Away. It is an amazing song. I wanted to show the album Music for All Occasions, but I couldn't find it. So I know I have it somewhere. So this was my next choice, but really anything by the Mavericks is very good. I think they actually just came out with an album of all songs in Spanish. So they're kind of all over the place. So they're sort of hard to pigeonhole them. But, this was a really strong album called Trampoline.
Chris, I love every song in that album. It is fantastic.
Yeah, and Raul Malo, he's got some Roy Orbison in his voice. He can croon like anybody. I mean, this guy's got a velvet voice. He could just sing the phone book. It's amazing. And the band is killer. Their arrangements are great. Yeah, just a really good band. And I don't really hear them talked about that often. And I don't think I've even really mentioned them in my videos that often, but I think I'm going to start because they're a really good band.
I love that song where he sings, "I've got this feeling inside."
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so Roy Orbison.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, and the arrangement of that song sounds could be
so good. Every song in that album is great. It's one of my grails. If it ever got released on vinyl, I'd buy it in a second. To me, that's their best album. It's just such a beautiful mix of rock, country, rockabilly. It's fantastic.
I feel so good right now because JC likes one of my picks.
Yes. Oh, I love it, dude. I love it.
It's a great way to start off your
fantastic album.
And that's an honorable mention. Wow, I didn't even think too much about this. Actually, no, I did think about this. This a lot of thought went into this album.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now
Nice
I'm gonna
pick.
go listen to that tomorrow.
Cool.
All right, who's next?
All right, I'm sorry, I just stopped talking. Did you want to talk more?
Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
Okay, my honorable mention is the Black Crowes, Southern Harmony,
Yes.
and
I thought
the
about
musical companion. Every song on this is great. There was like 5 singles off this album, and I'm a huge fan of Shake Your Money Maker. I think Shake Your Money Maker is great, but I think this is their masterpiece. Just tell a really quick story. They were signed to a very terrible deal. Rick Rubin had them bent over a barrel. They made absolutely no money off their first album, but there was a clause that Rick Rubin had to pick up that he neglected to. He forgot to pick up the clause. And that meant the contract was null and void, and the Black Crowes could get out of it. So at that point, the Black Crowes had all the leverage. Rick Rubin renegotiated. They had one of the most lucrative deals of the 90s. They went in the studio, recorded this album in 2 weeks because they already had the songs already written. And you can feel the rawness and the aggression on this album. And I tell everybody, like everybody knows the hits, but the song Sometimes Salvation, where he's got this harshness in his voice. And I'm sure there was a part of him that was like, oh, maybe I should re-record that. But it's just brilliant. And Bad Luck, Blue Eyes, Goodbye. And those 2 songs just kill me. But this is a perfect album. There's not one song that's bad in it. There's not one song that I would skip. And I think they end it with a Bob Marley cover. So that is my honorable mention. Fantastic.
That's
album.
a great one. That's a great
I
album.
love that. Yeah, I love the Black Crowes.
Yeah, that one. I remember I had a show for a little while. One of those like a Wayne's World type thing.
Nice.
Cable access show with a friend of mine. He had one, and we talked about some albums. And because I think that came out like around the same time as Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
Yep, 1992.
And I said something about, I said, forget the Guns N' Roses album, guys. Go get this Black Crowes album. It's so much better. And of course, everybody's like, you're full of shit and stuff.
Yeah. And Josh, what are the first few songs on that album? Because there was one that I always remember that I really, really liked.
So yeah, Sting Me, Remedy. Remedy was a huge hit.
Remedy, that's the one. I love that song.
Great song.
Great song.
And
Yeah,
they're going on tour once this pandemic is over, and they're exclusively doing the first 2 albums. Like they said it's gonna be nothing but hits. So when the Crowes come around to your town, go see them.
Wow.
Don't they have something new coming out tomorrow too?
Yeah, it's Shake Your Moneymaker Anniversary Edition. It's like a
Okay.
4 LP. I'll have it Wednesday. You can watch me unbox it.
All right.
I'll
Cool.
put it up on the YouTube.
YouTube's.
All right, Aaron, it's your turn.
Okay, my album came out in 1990. This is my honorable mention. This is Spread Eagle, who started out in Boston. JC, you probably know this band pretty well.
Yeah.
But this is one of my favorite hard rock albums of the 90s. And they started out as a band called Bang. And actually won like the MTV Basement Award or Basement Tape thing. And they had I can't remember the song they had, Sometime or something like that. What was it? Summertime? All right. With this album here, they got a singer named Ray West from New York to add it into them and change their name to Spread Eagle. And Ray West was one of my favorite singers of the 80s, 90s. Just got like a gravelly voice, really good Axl Rose, but better kind of voice, I thought. And every song I love on this, it's Broken City, starting off with that. It's just that real moody song. And Back on the Bitch. What else is on here? Scratch Like a Cat. It's just an amazing record. And they have 2 more records after this, but this is my favorite. I listened to this so much. Yeah.
That's a hard one to find, Aaron. It's rare. Yeah, it's like $150 record.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I have a copy, and back a while ago, I ordered some records, and I didn't read the fine print. That's why I don't online buy stuff much, And then half the records were like gouged on one side, and the other side was perfect. I don't know why. I don't know what that was about, but it was one of these, so I had to get another one, and I ended up getting a good copy of it. But yes, it was a pretty big, kind of a hit. Played the video a lot, and just the real heavy raw metal. I love it.
I actually have the hype sticker still on my cassette too.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Pretty
You
cool.
had me at hype.
Well, that's why I said it, JC.
Yeah. You really had me at Mavericks. Let's face facts.
Oh, yeah. I could actually just leave. I could leave right now because
I
You
was
made
gonna
my
put
night.
With FA, but I just put them up there so I wouldn't have to talk about them again.
Yeah,
So I talk about them a lot.
that's
Nothing
okay.
wrong with that.
All right.
Okay. My honorable mentions from 1994. I don't know how you guys will feel about this one, but I picked Live Through This by Hole. I love this album. I have liked it since it came out. And I know at the time, a lot of people hated Courtney Love. They had all kinds of different ideas about her. A lot of people tried to say that Kurt Cobain wrote this album, as a ghostwriter and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. This is like, I don't know. I guess it's kind of grunge, but it's got like a lot of punk elements in it, I think, the way she sings this. But it's also like it developed here from like what their first album was. They added a little more melody and stuff. And I just think whether it's real or not, just the emotion that she has in her voice on this particular album, it's just so raw. I mean, it just, to me, it sounds very powerful. And I saw them on this tour. They were on the Lollapalooza tour that was going around. And I was like in the, I don't know, 8th row or something. And they were great live. I mean, she was a mess, but I mean, she had on one of those baby doll skirts like she was wearing at the time. And, the fan was just blowing it up, and it wasn't necessarily something you wanted to see, but, I mean, but they rocked. That whole band just kicked ass. And it was just a great show. It was like them and Cypress Hill, and I can't remember who else. Oh, Sonic Youth was there too.
Nice.
At that one.
That's a crazy bill. Wow.
Oh, it was. It was it was all over the place on that one. But Anyway, that's my honorable mention.
Someday you will ache like I ache. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah, all right. I gotta get my
All
singing out of
parts.
the way. All right, it's really gonna go that way. All right. So my pick's gonna be Doctors, Pocket Full of Kryptonite. No. All right. I like my power pop, and I'm gonna go with Crowded House, Woodface as my honorable mention. Always been a big fan of Neil Finn, and this is the first album they have where Tim Finn who is also with Split Ends, is on this album. And this was their third album, and it's just a great power pop album. If you like infectious melodies, if you like, Beatlesque melodies and music and harmonies, just Neil and Tim Finn are just so great at crafting memorable melodies. And it's just, if you like the first two albums, Chocolate Cake was, I think, the lead single off of here, but so many great tracks off of here. Whispers and Moans is great. 4 Seasons in One Day, just fantastic. I love Split Ends, but they really pick up where Split Ends left off. And I like that one a lot. So
Awesome.
I love the first Crowded House record, so I'd probably like that too if I heard it.
yeah, the one with Don't Dream It's Over and something.
Really good record.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and their drummer Paul Hester, very unfortunately, he committed suicide, I think, I don't know, in the early part of the 2000s. And I think Crowded House is still putting out records sporadically now, but it's here and there, I think.
I don't know too much by Crowded House. I'm gonna have to explore.
Yeah, no, they're great.
And
I feel like we're all like mellow tonight.
Yeah.
We're still recovering from last week.
We're all like, yeah, this album, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's,
Yeah.
it's because last week I opened it up with that Blue Balls comment, and it all went.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Hey, one thing you can say is, I mean, starting with the Mavericks and going around the circle here, quite a lot of variety.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's good. All right, we up to me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, this came out in 1992. This is Led Zeppelin's Into. And what was really interesting about this album is there's 6 different covers. All right. See, I can't do it as well as Jeff does. Aaron, like with that video, like straight face. Yeah.
A for effort. A for effort.
Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. All right. No. So serious. This is serious though. This came out in 1997. The Indigo Girls. I'm just going all over the place tonight. This is their album, Shaming of the Sun. I was in college when this album came out, and I was student teaching at the time. And I remember listening to this every single morning driving to my student teaching gig that I was doing. The Indigo Girls, they're known for, obviously being a sort of a folk band, but this is where they really started to branch out and kind of get a little heavier, heavy for the Indigo Girls anyways. This had a hit on it called Shame on You, which was a pretty big hit for them. Love the song Get Out the Map. They play with some hip hop beats on a song called Shed Your Skin. So as I said, they're kind of all over the place. They have a really pretty ballad called Leads on here. I still have my ticket when I saw them in the Finger Lakes in 1998. Really cool concert. But yeah, really good album. When it came out, a lot of hardcore Indigo Girls fans were like, wait a second, this doesn't sound like the Indigo Girls I like, the folk melodies and the simple arrangements and things like that. But at first I was a little taken aback by it as well, but it's sort of like, it's one of those albums that grows on you, and it's aged well too. So Shaming of the Sun, Indigo Girls, 1997.
Nice.
Awesome.
Killer, man. All right. So my next one, in the 90s, people always used to ask me, like kind of like the Stones and Beatles, who's better, Pearl Jam or Nirvana? And I would always answer it with Alice in Chains. Always. And I love Pearl Jam and I love Nirvana. I'm not trying to say that they're not great bands. And I own a lot of their albums. But Alice in Chains to me was always the best band of that genre. In this album, for someone that never did heroin in his life, thank God, this album paints a very dark picture of what it's like to be addicted to drugs. And a lot of the songs are about, Lane's heroin addiction, but it's just fantastic. And we all know the hits like Rooster and Them Bones and Angry Chair and Wood, but there is not a bad song on this album. And if someone out there said to me, okay, I can only own one grunge album, what should it be? It's very difficult, and I know most people would say go get Versus, Nevermind, or Super Unknown, but to me it would be Dirt. This would be the grunge album to get. It's probably the most metal of all the grunge bands, but like I always say on my channel, people say that grunge killed metal. It didn't. Most of the grunge bands loved metal. Alice in Chains started off as a metal band. Members of Pearl Jam were huge fans of UFO, Scorpions. Kurt Cobain was a Kiss fan. They all love metal. The Weezer, if you open up the Blue Album by Weezer, they have a Judas Priest poster and a Quiet Riot poster. These bands loved metal. What ended up happening was the record companies decided they were going to push this because metal was no longer cool. And that's what killed metal, not these bands. So don't take it out on the grunge bands. That's something that annoys me. But great album, my number 5.
Alice in Chains toured with Anthrax on the Persistence of Time tour.
They did, and Slayer and Megadeth. Yep.
Yeah. So.
And then other bands that came from Alice in Chains, like Godsmack, got their name from a song on that record.
Yep, absolutely. And they're a local band.
Also on the first Weezer album, they also mentioned Kiss.
Yep. Those
Didn't
bands
Alice in
love
Chains
metal.
didn't Alice in Chains tour with Kiss?
Yep, they did tour with Kiss. It was their last tour. Yep.
Mm.
It's crazy.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yep.
Yeah, they did a few shows like when Kiss got back together, right?
When they got back together. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they were supposed to tour with Metallica, but Lane was too sick. They were slotted for the opening act, and Metallica went and got the band that sang Albatross, Corrosion of Conformity,
Oh,
instead, because
Good
they couldn't
band.
get out.
I will say it did seem though like it took those grunge bands a while before they acknowledged that, you know, when they were younger, they liked Kiss and all these other bands, because at first they were just, you know, they would always name, you know, all these alternative and bizarre bands to try to make themselves, I don't know, have more credibility or something. But eventually it did come out that, you know, half of them would say, yeah, I was Ace Frehley's who made me want to pick up a guitar, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, there's definitely a connection.
Yeah, and you have to think that the record companies, their managers had a lot to do with that. You know, they were like, hey, we're trying to sell these records, go out there and, you know, but I think it's obvious, you could tell that they were trying to sneak their love in for these other artists, you know?
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know. I mean, Pearl Jam cited Anne Murray as a pretty influence.
Most people
The
do.
Satanic album, definitely. King Diamond was influenced out of that too.
You got to work Anne Murray into every video.
Spread
You're the
your
one to
tiny
do it.
wings and fly away.
Yeah.
Nice choice there.
Thanks.
Yeah, good one.
I have some added stuff to come later.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Josh, you know, it's not the Mavericks, but it was,
I love the Mavericks.
It's all
I
good.
don't know the Mavericks, sorry.
Chris, if I had that vinyl, it would be right back there. I'd put it up there for a week for you.
All right, Aaron.
Oh, it's me? All right. So my fifth one, and this album, this is Wasted in America by Love Hate, their second record, 1992. And Blackout in the Red Room was a great record, but I think this might even be a little bit better. And it's kind of a alternative grunge metal funk hybrid type thing. And when this was out, me and my friends listened to this so much and partied to it, and started off with the song Wasted in America, talking about a kid getting high in his room, and then Miss America, Yucca Man, Happy Hour, all these great grunge type but also metal songs. And the weird thing, I'll have to swear for this, is the song Don't Fuck With Me, which is an acoustic song. But that's actually about racism, about ending racism. And it's a very, very good song about that. It's do you guys know that song at all?
Yes.
I don't.
Can you say the title? Can you say the title one more time?
Yeah, Don't Fuck.
Hey, calm down there.
Yeah.
There we go. All
But
right.
you think it's going to be like a belligerent song, but it's about everybody getting together and accepting you for who you are, is what the song's about. And it's it's amazing. But this album is very underrated. Evil Twin, wasn't me, it must have been my evil twin. I just love this. And and the lead singer Jizzy Pearl, he went on to sing with Rat, I believe, for a little while, didn't he?
Yeah.
From a few different bands. But this album here, just so many memories from this, partying back when I was just in my early 20s, and all my friends going nuts over this. We listened to this a million times.
So, Aaron, I used to be in the Columbia House Music Club and BMG Music Club, and my father used to open it up, and he always used to yell at me because he hated devil music. And when I got that Love Hate, it was probably on CD. My dad's like, at least it has the word love in the title, and threw it at me.
Yeah. He's kind of like the Jim Morrison of hard rock.
Yeah.
That kind of that weird like social sidewinder, almost has a door quality with just how he how he sings, almost like a poem.
Yeah, that was a blind buy for me when I got that. I was just flipping through the catalog and I'm like, it was in the metal section. I'm like, I'll get it, you know, and I loved it, but I haven't owned it in decades now. So,
Well, I had Blackout in the Red Room right when it came out because I saw them open for Dio on that tour, and it was Blackout in the Red Room on Lock Up the Wolves, and they were just so great live. I went out and bought the record right away, and it instantly became a favorite. So I was waiting for that one to come out. I think I got that on the day it was released. I think I still have the tape over there somewhere. It's over there.
Nice.
So they're one of my favorite bands that are kind of lesser known. I'm still looking for their third record, Let's Rumble. That's a hard one to get. I don't think it's ever on vinyl.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah. So he's kind of like Tim Morrison of the hard rock metal grunge-ish type music.
Awesome.
Yep.
I would I'd pass up my spot if Aaron wants to tell us some of the stories about his early 20s there and partying to that record. I was kind of hoping you were going to share a little bit, but
It's gonna be a different episode.
It's all fun.
5 memories
Yeah.
from the 20s.
well, my number 5, I guess Josh kind of stole a little bit of my steam, but I went with Facelift, my Alice in Chains, just because I think you can definitely hear the metal in this record. You know, they haven't quite, you know, got to the point where they would be, but they're right there. And when that came out, it was just like kind of like, wow, this is kind of different. You know, I mean, it definitely had that sound where all of a sudden it made some of these other bands sound kind of silly, you know, because, you know, they had that heavy vibe and they had that whole thing of Lane and Jerry singing together, the way they would harmonize together. And it was just this weird haunting sound that they added to, you know, this, you know, dun, 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 you know, and, you know, and it starts out, We Die Young, which, you know, guitar wise and stuff, that just sounds like almost like a metal song of the day, a hard rock song, but it's got cooler vocals on it, you know, and it's like as this album progressed, when you first listen to it, you realize this is something different. You know, this is something cool. And I don't know. I think this holds up. It's a good album.
It does.
My number
I mean,
5.
I love Facelift, and it was hard picking which Alice in Chains because they did Facelift, you know, Sap, Jar of Flies, Dirt, and then the self-titled. All of those to me could have been on this list. There,
Yeah.
If I was doing a top 50, they'd all be on there.
I almost went with Dirt, and I said, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
So
I went back and forth all day. So
All right, well, I'm gonna go against the grain here a little bit, and my pick is be Ben Folds 5, the unauthorized biography of Reinhold Messner, their only concept album, and the last album that they recorded under the moniker Ben Folds 5, as far as I'm concerned. I think Ben Folds just kind of went solo on his own from this point on, but it's an interesting album, and mostly because, you know, this is the 1990s, and I don't think there's a single guitar on this album. It's like all piano-based rock. If you like Elton John from the 70s, if you like Billy Joel, you know, any artist that is primarily piano-based, very interesting. But, you know, it's almost a progressive rock album in some ways because it's thematic and, you know, it's got different themes and just interesting. Like one of the tracks is just an answering machine message. You know, it's called Your Redneck Past. Or I'm sorry, Your Most Valuable Possession is called. And it's like, I don't know if it's Ben Folds' dad leaving him a voicemail message. It's like this rambling voicemail message with like a piano instrumental backing behind it. It's just like so bizarre, but I love it. It's quirky, but it's got a lot of melody. If you know Ben Folds, he's a great songwriter, great singer. He crafts beautiful, gorgeous melodies. And that's was kind of their trademark, is they don't have a guitarist. They got a piano, bass, and drums. That's about it. No lead guitar, no rhythm guitar. It's just all piano, but it's very cool. And this was their third album, and you know, I think it's one of their best.
So Jeff, I got that when that first album came out, the one with Underground, before they had Break and The Hit, I was given that. So I was like, a friend at work was like, you need to hear this album, and I loved it. And then the second album blew up, which has my favorite Ben Folds song, Evaporated. If you know that song, it's just killer. But I remember getting that third album, and I feel like they took a lot more risks on that third album, which I credit them, because they didn't try to copy the success of that album before it and write Brick Part 2. And you're right, it is more progressive. It's a weirder, stranger album, but it's killer. It's almost like got like, you know, nothing sounds like Tom Waits, but almost like they were like, we're gonna make a strange, you know, Tom Waits type of album, and it's killer. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I love, you know, it's and just even some of the lyrics are just so, you know, Ben Folds, he's a very clever but a cheeky songwriter, you know, like the song Army. You know, he's talking about, you know, I said I'm going to join the army, and you know, Dad said, son, you must be fucking high. Just it's so funny. But that's the way Ben Folds is. He's just, you know, it's not like a put on. I mean, he's, you know, a serious singer-songwriter, but he does have his kind of funny, whimsical moments as well. But
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
All right, Chris.
All right. I seem to recognize your face, haunting familiar, yet I can't seem to place it. Yeah, Pearl Jam. I mean, this album it's killer. I mean, it starts with Go. You've got Daughter on here, Elderly Woman, Rearview Mirror, which is probably one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs. Indifference, just the whole album. And I listened to this a lot more than 10. I picked, I wanted to go with No Code. I love that album as well, but I think that this just has so many more hits on it, and I just pulled this out a lot more. I mean, you could not walk into any college dorm room without somebody playing this album. I mean, that's the thing with the 90s. Like, I was in college from 93 to 97. So when I hear this stuff, it just takes me back to those times. And Pearl Jam Versus is one of those albums, and you know, probably my favorite Pearl Jam album.
It's a perfect album. I really do.
That's always one of my favorite of them. I just love that record too.
I love Rearview Mirror. I love Glorified G.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Glorified G is great too.
Yeah, I love Indifference off of that album.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much pressure because 10 was such a classic album, and how are you going to follow that up? And then they put out an album like Versus, which is, you know, every bit as good, if not better. You know, that's really.
I almost picked Vitalogy too, because I love Nowhere Man.
Yeah.
And
And Corduroy.
it also has Spin the Black Circle on it too,
Spin the Black
Yes.
Circle. Yeah.
which is not a devil song. Everybody, it's about playing a record. Okay, so everybody calm down. All right, but no, so I went with Versus.
Great. I love Elder Behind the Counter in a Small Town too. That's such a good song.
Yeah, I almost went and grabbed my guitar, and then I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that right now. But another time.
So my next one came out in 1999. It's probably one of my favorite albums of all time. I think everyone should own it. And that's Mule Variations by Tom Waits.
Nice.
This is one of Tom Waits' best albums. Starts off with Big in Japan, which is just hysterical. Low Side of the Road, Hold On, Get Behind the Mule, Pony, What's He Building in there, Black Market Baby. But some of the most classic songs are Chocolate Jesus, which is about when people, you know, can't make it to church, they can buy a confection called the Chocolate Jesus and, you know, save their soul, which is just fantastic. Picture in a Frame, which is a song, Chris, you should learn and play for your lady friends when they come over. I'm
going to learn Chocolate Jesus.
Georgia Lee, which is one of my favorites. And then there's a song, Filipino Box Spring Hog, which is total Tom Waits blitz craziness. And I used to work, for this giant furniture company. And we used to go back there, and the warehouse guy got him hooked on Tom Waits. And we used to crank Filipino Box Spring Hog. And people would just roll their eyes because it's such a strange song. But I absolutely love it. And it's one of my favorites of all time.
Hey, Josh,
Yeah.
have you ever heard the album that Tom Waits produced for John Hammond? And he plays it on with a little bit. It's called Wicked Grin.
No, I want to though now.
Yeah, it seems to me like something you would like, because he does songs by Tom Waits. And of course, I don't know. I don't know. Do you know who John Hammond is?
Yep.
The blues player.
Yep.
And it's I don't know. It's just kind of an oddball album, but I think you might like it. Going by what you just said there, it's called Wicked Grin.
I'll check it out. Definitely.
I've heard that. It's good. My dad listens to John Hammond, so when I was working, I'd have to hear him a lot. And that's a good one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love John Hammond. He's great.
Nice.
All right, Aaron.
It's me? All right. Well, this next one here is 1992 again, I think. Yeah. And this was a game changer for me. This is Sexorcisto Devil Music Volume 1 by White Zombie. I had never heard anything like this when it came out, and I just became infatuated with the lyrics and it just how that flow. And when he mixed all the, all the stuff he mixes in the movies or whatever, the special effects. And Black Sunshine, I didn't realize it was Iggy Pop at first singing on that, which is really cool. And Thunder Kiss 65 is one of my favorite songs. And this, it just totally changed. It was kind of like not grunge, but it kind of took it to another step in a way. And he said he wanted to make music that was danceable still. It's still metal, but danceable. So that's kind of where they get their groove on this thing.
I almost want to say, like, he mixed like a little bit of industrial in his sound too, I want to say.
Yeah, a little gothic, a little industrial, a little grunge, a little metal. It's kind of an amalgam, kind of a mixture.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
And even though White Zombie is a New York band, he was born in Boston. I ran into Rob Zombie at Tower Records in Boston on Newbury Street, and someone was like, "Oh my God, that's Rob Zombie." I knew he was a huge Danzig fan, so I walked up to him and I said, "I heard you're going to draw something for Glenn Danzig Comic Book Company," and he's like, "Yeah, I am." And we talked for about 20 minutes on Glenn Danzig, and my friends are just sitting around like, "How'd you get Rob Zombie to talk to you so long?" I said, "I never talked about Rob Zombie once. I didn't go up and be like, 'Oh, I love White Zombie.' We just talked about the Misfits, talked about Danzig." It was really cool. It was an experience I'll never forget.
Well, I know Josh, you're being modest, but you also, during that conversation, said to him, "You know what you should do? You should remake Halloween." So, I mean, credit where credit is due.
Exactly. It's all on me, guys. You can blame me or you can love me.
Yeah, personally,
I blame you.
Do you like a lot of the zombie stuff too?
Yeah, I think it's killer. I mean, I don't listen to a lot of the newer stuff, just the White Zombie and the early Rob Zombie stuff.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
This one just has a whole different feel though to me. I don't know. It's one of those records that does kind of changes the musical landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Crowded House album that Jeff showed was one of those.
Absolutely. Well,
it changed the whole
dance to it. Yeah.
Whole musical landscape.
So we're just going to tee off on Jeff's picks. Is that what?
Now listen, Jeff, I can say that because I showed the Indigo Girls. So
yeah.
And Jeff, I love your picks, man.
I do. I'm busting. I mean, I was hoping Herb Alpert came out with an album in the 90s. I was gonna.
I got Rob Zombie and White Zombie. That's one of those bands that all I know is the occasional song. And it's like, I always like the songs that I hear, but for some reason I never gone out and bought an entire album. And, now that you're talking about that, Aaron, I'm sitting there going, why did I never buy any of these albums? Every song I've ever heard, I think is kick ass. I just don't know if it's something that, you know, how much of the album, like the songs are a little bit different, you know, because I always picture like like, I don't know if he's an artist where every song is like almost the same or what. I like an album where there's a little bit difference in it, where you can listen to the entire album. I don't know how he fits in there, but I mean, Dragula is just a perfect song. I love that song so much. I know that's later, but I mean, I love Thunder Kiss 65 too. That's great.
Yeah. But no, this whole album is really good though. It's worth getting this one for sure. It's
I definitely need to do that.
It's kind of like a concept album that isn't a concept album because it has a big story kind of, but it isn't really a concept album. It's just, yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
We're number 4. My number 4 pick is kind of different from what we've been talking about, I guess. But I went with Cheap Trick, and this came out in '97, and this is actually just called Cheap Trick. It's 20 years after their debut album, but they released this. They got a new record deal for some like small time label called Red Ant Music, and it folded like right after this album came out. So it barely got any promotion or anything. And this is, I mean, if you guys like Cheap Trick, and if you don't have this album, I guarantee you will love it. It has everything on it you would love from Cheap Trick. I mean, it's got like some heavy songs. It's got some ballads on here, you know. I mean, it's got soaring vocals at times from Robin Zander. They had kind of a minor hit with a song on here called Say Goodbye, which is just a perfect Cheap Trick song. But, this is one of the ones that I go back to quite often when it comes to Cheap Trick. And to me, this is a 5-star album that for whatever reason just kind of went and disappeared. And I don't know, maybe because it was, well, you know how it is anyway, when older bands release newer music, it's only people like us that buy it. You know, the general population, they're like, no, I just want to hear I Want You to Want Me and Dream Police, and that's it. You know, it's music nerds like us that keep up with this stuff. And if you talk to any hardcore Cheap Trick fans, they're going to tell you, yeah, this is a great album. So that's my pick from 1997, Cheap Trick.
Did they ever release it on vinyl, Gary?
I have not seen it. You would probably be able to tell me that.
Yeah.
You're the one that sent me Guitar Shop, and I didn't even think that existed on vinyl.
Right.
I open up the mail and I'm like, hey, look at this fucking album. It's on vinyl. Jesus. That was like, I can't tell you how shocked I was when I opened that up. I'm like, oh my God. I was trying to guess what it was, you'd send me, and that was not on my mind at all. So that was fantastic. So I don't know. You tell me, Josh. Is this
right,
on vinyl?
I'll let you know tomorrow. I'll Google it.
All right.
What was the name of that Cheap Trick record? I missed it.
Yeah, it's just called Cheap Trick.
Okay, that's why.
That's what's weird. They had 2 albums called Cheap Trick, the first and then this one.
Just like Duran Duran.
Yeah. Well, they're basically the same band.
Yeah. All right. Well, when people ask me who my favorite band is, Pearl Jam or Nirvana, I say Sting. This is his album, Summoner's Tales. And really, Sting, he left the Police, obviously, and he kind of recorded 2 very pretentious jazz albums with Dream of the Blue Turtles and Nothing Like the Sun. Now, don't get me wrong, they're fantastic albums, but not a lot reminded you of the Police on those albums. And then he recorded his most pretentious album yet. He took a lot of heat over it, The Soul Cages, which was his 3rd album. And it was even farther from anything he had done with the Police. It was very moody, very introspective. And so this was kind of the album where he kind of got his mojo back. Everything that you loved about the Police, the melodies, kind of the catchy rhythms. He's having a lot of fun on this album. He's not taking himself too seriously like he had done the 3 albums previously. So I think this is Sting's most accessible solo album, his most fun. Sumner is actually, his real name is Gordon Sumner. And so hence the title, but yeah, just a lot of fun. I first heard this album actually in a music appreciation class. They played St. Augustine and Hell, the instructor did, because it's a very, it's kind of jazzy, but, you know, in a very jazz fusion kind of way, but there's, you know, he sings it, but just all over the place. Each track is different. Not one sounds like the last, and it's a lot of fun to listen to. If you like Sting, you like the Police, this is definitely my favorite Sting album of the 90s. Possibly, well, Nothing Like the Sun, I think, is my favorite Sting album, but this is a very close second.
Is that the one?
Were there any hits on that one?
I think the only hit that might have been on here is If I Ever Lose My Faith in You, but also I think Fields of Gold might have also hit off of there.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. I love his solo song, and I know some people don't like this song, but I'm So Happy I Can't Stop Crying. Have you ever heard that song?
Yeah.
Because I'm a divorced dad, and so I get my son on the weekends, and he's got this line in that song where he goes, "The park is full of Sunday fathers with melted ice creams. We try to do the best we can within our given time." And, you know, I don't feel like I'm a Sunday father. Like, I call my son every day, we FaceTime. But it does make me think, like, you know, it's like the clock is ticking. I pick up my kid every Friday night at 4, and that clock is ticking till Sunday when I have to drop him off. I wish I could see him every day. And that song is a perfect example of I'm so happy I can't stop crying. You know, he's, you know, going through this divorce that he doesn't want to go through. And I just love it. And Sting is great. I mean, but I agree that some of his solo work is very pretentious. I wish he would just have more fun with it.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting because his lyrics, you know, especially on this album, he's not like Elvis Costello, or Elvis Costello is trying to be the smartest songwriter in the room always, you know, and trying to like outwit everybody. And, you know, it's almost like he's trying to, you know, be like one up on every other singer songwriter. You know, Sting, some of his lyrics are just so like matter of fact. Like I could have written, you know, some of those lyrics, but they're clever, they're funny, and you know, some of the rhymes are just like so obvious, and yet they work so well within the context of a given song.
Great pick.
I like his winter album, Songs for a Winter Night. I think I want to call it.
Yeah, I think that came out not too long ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great album.
Dreams of the Blue Turtle, I really like that album a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
That Moon Over Bourbon Street, especially.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my turn.
Yep.
All right, I'm going 1993, Counting Crows, August and Everything After. Just from top to bottom, such an amazing album. And you know, JC mentioned his son. I'm going to mention my kids. You know, I put this stuff on, and my kids totally dig it. And this is an album from 1993, so it's aged really well. I mean, you've got Round Here on here, Mr. Jones, Perfect Blue Buildings, even the deeper cuts like Sullivan Street is amazing. Raining in Baltimore, and again, every time I would walk through the dorm, somebody would be playing this album. And now thinking about it, like I have all these albums I should have shown. Like I should have shown a Bare Naked Ladies album and a They Might Be Giants record. And when Gary was talking about that Cheap Trick album, I was thinking, oh yeah, Kiss Carnival of Souls, that kind of fits into that sort of like, you know, nobody gave a shit about Kiss and whenever it came out. Yeah. But that's a killer record. But yeah, I'm going with August and Everything After.
Chris, I love the. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say, you know, really interesting because, you know, their songs have such depth, and Sullivan Street in particular. I don't know if you know this, Chris, but it's actually about blue balls.
Well, yeah, I didn't know that, but I know that he is singing about shaving his mustache off during the song. But I never made the correlation with the blue ball thing. So
yeah, look it up on Wikipedia. It's true.
Okay. Yeah.
What I was going to say is I love those first 4 Counting Crows records. I really don't think there's a bad song on any of them. And Chris, they have a live album called Between Two Wires. Go listen to that. That thing is fantastic. Yeah.
Did anybody load or reload the show tonight?
I did not.
I did not.
Uh,
But I like Load. So okay.
I do too. I didn't pick
I
it,
did
but
too.
All right, so my next one I think is one of the greatest albums of all time. Came out in 1997. I did have a hard choice because the album before this I feel is equally as good, but this one is a double record, so you get twice the songs, and every song is fantastic. And that's "OK Computer" by Radiohead. You know, some people I get it, they don't get it. The Bends is a guitar album, right? So if people have never listened to Radiohead, go listen to the Bends, because that is a grunge rock album. Very, very catchy songs. This here is more of an experimental album, where they really went down like the early Pink Floyd album, Rabbit Hole, experimenting with sounds. And not that it sounds like Pink Floyd, but it's definitely experimental. But they have jazz songs on here, like No Surprises, sounds like something Frank Sinatra could have sang. And it's a fantastic song. But, you know, Comma Police, I think that's one of the greatest songs of the 90s. Paranoid Android, Exit Music, Let Down. The lyrics are haunting. They're beautiful lyrics. This is the expanded. For those of you that say like, oh, they wish they would come out with deluxe versions, this is about everything you'd need. It's a triple album. Yeah. And it's just fantastic. I think it's going to go down as one of the greatest albums of all time. And there's no song
okay, is that the "Okay Not Okay" version?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I got that on CD.
The last song, "How I Made My Millions," which didn't make the album. When you have a band that has songs that didn't make the album that would make anyone else's album, you know it's fantastic. They were just at a creative peak at this point. And then their next album, Kid A, and they had a string of albums that were very innovative and amazing. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, when did Kid A come out? Because I really like that album too.
Yeah, so this was 97. So Kid A was probably about 2000. So it was a couple of years later, because they toured for a couple of years on this one. I know Aaron's really never listened to Radiohead, so I tell you, Aaron, go get the Bends. That's the one that you probably love, and then work your way to this.
So you wouldn't have him start off with Pablo Honey?
I just think the Bends is a much better album. I think Pablo Honey's got Creep, which was a huge hit, and it's got some great songs. But the Bends, they really come together. Like, I feel that they learned how to craft a song. A lot of bands, their first album is their best album because they've toured for years before they get a record deal. But I think in the 90s, a lot of bands were getting signed right away. Like, oh, you sound like Nirvana, we're going to sign you. And while they were touring on Pablo Honey, they really learned how to craft songs. And who would think that years later, right now, I mean, their last album, Moonshaped Pool, was nominated for Album of the Year. I think it's one of the greatest albums of the last 20 years. So even they're a 30-year-old band that are still pumping out albums that are critically acclaimed. And, you know, they never stopped experimenting. So, I mean, a lot of bands nowadays, they don't take chances, right? They're formulaic. Not that formulaic is a bad thing if it's really good, right? Like, I'm not one of those people that hates formulaic. You know, like, I love AC/DC, and every AC/DC album sounds the same. But
Motorhead.
For a band that's constantly experimenting, to not, eventually people get sick of that, and no one's really gotten sick of Radiohead yet.
Nice.
Cool. All right.
I know cover this episode. That's kind of cool. I've never heard of two of these bands very much, like Ben Folds 5 and Radiohead and a couple others. So I'll look into all of them.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, your turn, Aaron.
It is? Oh,
Yeah.
I can't tell because we're out of order on my screen. So
Yeah.
I was like, what's going on here? Okay, next up, this album is this, Mother Love Bone Apple. And this, to me, is one of the 3 or 4 greatest grunge albums ever, but it's not really just straight grunge. They kind of mixed grunge with glam metal in a way. The lead singer, Andrew Wood, and they recorded this album. It was Andrew Wood, Jeff Ament, Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam. This is before Pearl Jam. And the lead singer, Andrew Wood, had been clean off heroin he was a big heroin addict his whole life. He'd been clean for like about 4 months. And they just got done recording the record. He went and did it again and ended up in a coma and was in a coma for a couple weeks, and then he died. And then this album came out 4 months later. And it's kind of, it's amazing because he was singing about dying from heroin on the album. And this is Shangri-La. And it's they were signed to a 7-record deal at this point, but they only made this one, obviously. And then the Pearl Jam came from the ashes. But Yeah, and it's one of the best albums. The sound Crown of Thorns, Chloe Dancer's Crown of Thorns is one of my favorite, like kind of a ballad type song that's ever been created. And it's just amazing. And they had a really kind of a different quirky feel to them with Stardog Champion, you know, Holy Roller, Bone China, all that stuff. Heart Shine maybe is my favorite song on here. It's kind of a more metal edge to it. But yeah, it's just too bad he died. But Pearl Jam came out of it, so at least something good came out of it. And they were always one of my favorites. I was into this like when it first came out. And then after they formed Pearl Jam, they were known as Mookie Blaylock for a while. But yeah, do you guys know this record very well?
Yeah, I love Chloe Dancer. That song is fantastic. And I remember, you know, I was watching the Pro Jam 20 and Andrew Wood was talking about like touring with like Warrant or something like that. It's like, you know, they definitely embraced a more glam metal edge, like you said.
Yeah, he was a big Kiss fan and, you know, all fans too. And yeah, he had this persona, this larger than life persona. He was a really cool guy. But yeah, so this is one of the few albums I can listen to that evokes like a sad emotion out of me when I hear it, even did back then. I'm not a crier, I hardly ever do, but this one, every once in a while, if I've had a beer or something, it'll get to me. It's just so good. And the music's heavy, beautiful, sublime. It's like all these different facets to it. And did you know this one, Gary or Jeff?
Yeah.
All I know is the name. I know the history of it a little bit, but honestly, I've never owned the record. So I'm kind of curious. After talking about it, do you prefer that or Pearl Jam?
This any day of the week.
Okay.
And they had one called Shine, I believe, before this. So they just had an EP in this, but if I was to rank like grunge bands, it'd be Alice in Chains 1, Mother Love Bone 2, and then Soundgarden 3 are my 3 favorites. And then Pearl Jam's right.
That's a cool pick, and I like it.
Yeah, I really love this album too. It's just so amazing. It's kind of crazy. The lyrics, just how he kind of was talking about dying, don't die on smack, you know, in the song, and then he dies like right before it's released. It was a crazy story.
Kind of
they
like
were-
sort of Sublime, you know, how the singer died right before their huge album came out, you know, also a heroin overdose.
Yeah, I like them too.
Yeah.
But they were kind of groundbreaking, Mother Love Bone in a way. They were just had their own. They were just really unique. Because they kind of like you said, the grunge and metal were at odds with a lot of people, but they kind of brought it together. Called it love rock. That's what Andrew Wood always music, love rock.
Nice.
When did that album come out?
1990.
90. Okay, so right started the decade. All right, cool. Okay. Well, mine is from 94, and I guess it's probably not much of a stretch here, but I went with Super Unknown by Soundgarden. And I realized, you know, I almost didn't pick this in a way because I know like there's some of the songs on here that, you know, we've heard so many times, and a lot of times we don't pick albums like that. But, you know, there's like 15 songs on here. And I mean, I to me, this was Soundgarden's, because, you know, Soundgarden always had a little bit of, you know, that Black Sabbath sound to them musically. And so to me, this is their Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, or their Sabotage. You know, I mean, this is where they kind of evolved a bit and they took chances. I mean, you know, when you listen to the albums before it and when you hear this, it's like all of a sudden here's a band that's like, you know what, we're still going to be a heavy band, but we're going to have a lot more melody in here. We're going to make this sound different. I mean, this to me is what I call a throwback album. And of course now it's from the 90s, but I mean, even at that time, because when you think of albums of the 70s, those were made as an album. You know, they were making albums like, okay, we think people are going to listen to side 1 all the way to side 2. It wasn't just songs. And that's how this album is to me. You know, you can listen to this as a whole and just appreciate it. This is, you know, without trying to sound too corny, this takes you on a journey. You know, you put this album on and one song is different from the other. One song evokes a different emotion than the other. And just the song itself, Super Unknown, to me is one of the best songs of the 90s. You know, he goes, alive in the super unknown. Chris Cornell's vocals are just amazing, you know, on this album. And it's like his vocals sometimes and the music almost don't match, but that's what makes it amazing. You know, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this album. I just think it's a fantastic album.
And Gary, what's really cool about them is they started on the SST label, the same label as Black Flag.
You know, every time I see you wear that freaking shirt, I keep thinking, you know, the next time I go down to Columbus, I got to get a Black Flag album. The only song I can remember by them is Annihilate All Week Long.
Annihilate this week, yeah.
This week. Okay, that's, yeah, it's kind of to me like Eric. I can remember partying a little bit and having some Black Flag on, you know, in the background stuff, but I really can't remember it that well. But I know I would like it. I got to get that again.
I'm so annoyed at myself. I should have shown a Sonic Youth album. I should have shown a Husker Du album. I don't know.
We could do a part 2.
Can we redo this video?
Start it over, Jeff.
Yeah,
I mean, Sonic Youth Goo, that album is just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, that was the band, you know, how I told you that they were on that Lollapalooza. Yeah. And I only knew a few songs by Sonic Youth. You know, that was another thing. You know, they're just kind of playing in the background. But when they played live, it was kind of like their sound just enveloped you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was just an experience type thing. It's like, I don't even know most of these songs here, but this just sounds awesome. You know, I don't know what they're playing, but it's cool. I liked it. So
they're cool band.
Well, my two favorite songs of the 1990s might be, if I had to pick today, Black Hole Sun and Paranoid Android.
Nice.
Two albums that you just picked. And I'm totally being serious about that. I love those songs and could never get tired of listening to them. Could listen to them on rotation all the time. All right. So anyway, again, I'm kind of going swimming upstream here, but I am going to go with one of my favorite artists of the 90s. And really, he had what should have been a one-hit. He should have been a one-hit wonder. He had a song that was kind of in that early alternative grunge period. It was a song called Loser, which everybody thought was going to be like a novelty hit. And then he comes out with one of the most brilliant albums of the 1990s, which is Odelay, but that's not my pick. But then after Odelay, he kind of shifts gears and does exactly the opposite of what you would expect him to do. And he comes out with this album, which is called Sea Change. It's kind of a dark, depressing breakup album. It's very acoustic. There's no hip hop beats. There's no, heavy guitars on it. It's just him. He was going through a divorce at the time and he's singing about it. He's kind of, wearing his heart on his sleeve and he's super sad. These songs are, I wouldn't say they're all dark and depressing, but for the most part, it's just, it's so different from Odelay and yet it's moving and it's kind of gentle at spots and everybody who's ever had a breakup can, connect with it on some level. But I think that's what makes Beck just so great is that, he's kind of the goofball who recorded Loser, and the brilliant tracks, Devil's Haircut from Odelay and some of those great tracks on there. And then immediately after this album, he does, one of the funniest, funkiest kind of goofball takes on, 70s funk and R&B with Midnight Vultures. So he was just stylistically all over the place. But I really like this album. And, people who, when Beck won his Grammy you know, a couple of years back, people thought, oh, well, that's Beck, and you know, isn't he such a great songwriter and whatnot? But like, this is, you know, people forget about this album. This album is every bit as good as the album that won him that Grammy. So anyway, that's my pick.
Jeff, that's a fantastic album. And I'm not joking here. There is a MoFi of that album, and it sells for like $400. But yeah, it's heartbreaking, but you know I love those heartbreaking lyrics. I'm all for it.
Aaron's got it. He knows.
Yeah, good record.
It's a great
It's
record.
interesting because there's all different covers for that. I don't know how many different covers there are, but like, you know, yeah.
Great album.
A weird gatefold too.
What was the other album you were mentioning? Was it called Morning Phase or something like that? Or
The one that he was nominated a few years ago, that
Yeah.
Kanye came up when he won,
This one?
grabbed the award. Morning
what's that
Phase.
called?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a lot like Morning Phase. So.
That's a pretty good one too.
Well,
Oh yeah.
This next album, I'm actually really not sure whether it came out in 1990 or 1989. So I don't think it really matters because nobody's watching at this point, but I'm going with Depeche Mode Violator. It says 1990 on it, but then it also says 1989.
It's 1990. The single for Personal Jesus came out in the fall of 1989, but that album came out in the spring of 1990.
Awesome. Okay, so this is my number 2 pick, Violator. Love Depeche Mode. This whole album, World in My Eyes, Personal Jesus, Waiting for the Night, Enjoy the Silence, Policy of Truth. It's almost like every song on this was a hit. I think they really perfected their sound by this point. I was a big Depeche Mode fan from like, I love Music for the Masses. I love Black Celebration. You know, but I think by Violator, it was like, all right, we have perfected the Depeche Mode sound. And that's why I'm happy it actually is 1990, because this is just a great album. So number 2, Depeche Mode Violator.
Yeah, I saw them on that tour. They came to it was called Pine Knob Music Theater. It was an outdoor venue that summer, and I was full on Depeche Mode. Were my favorite band at that time. I bought the T-shirt. You know, I was all in on them. Bought every single that came out. Enjoy the Silence, Policy of Truth, World of Eyes. All great tracks on that. They were huge back then. They were like the number 1 alternative band in 1990.
Yeah, love it. So good. All right, so
Chris, have you ever heard Johnny Cash's cover of Personal Jesus?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. I wanted to pick one of the American records. I did not, but
that's shit. I should have. Oh, damn it! I should have picked one of those.
Yeah, so many good ones.
Somebody else redid that song too, not that long ago. Personal Jesus.
Anne Murray.
No.
No, wasn't it? Def Leppard did.
Did they?
Def Leppard did. Yep.
Did they? It was them actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Josh, how the hell did I forget about the American recording albums?
I went back and forth between Black Crowes and American one. I could have picked any of the American records, but they were all amazing.
We could do like a part 2, a part 3 of this. I mean,
yeah, we really could. 5 more great ones from the 90s.
Yeah, we could.
Right. So my number 2 is one of my favorite albums of all time. It came out in 1994. And it is Tool, Enema. This year is where they really started to go progressive rock. It's absolutely amazing. They had like 8 singles off this album. Stinkfist was a big one. I won't talk about what that is about. Eulogy, which is about Jesus Christ and how people turned on Jesus. H, which is an awesome song. But the song 46 and 2 is really the standout track. And when I've seen them live like 5 times, and when I do, like the hair starts to stand up on my arms. It's like such a powerful song. They're all brilliant musicians. They take a long time to make an album. I know a lot of people are like, oh, their songs are so long. This is before they got into like the 15-minute song, but it's still very progressive. So I really love this album. Everybody go check it out. It's heavy. It's definitely heavy metal. It's just more progressive. So Tool. Love it.
I got a couple of,
What are you saying, Aaron?
I said I have a couple two albums. I like them, but I just don't have that record. I need to get that one.
Yeah, it's killer.
I'm just a tool. So.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
So is it me again?
Yep.
My number two. So I'm copying Gary here. My number two was Facelift. One of my favorite albums ever. I remember when I first heard the song "We Die Young," they had a different video for it on MTV, just them live without the all the effects and everything. And I was waiting for it. I bought the day it came out, the album, because I just love that song instantly. And the crazy thing, the drummer for this for them, Sean Kinney, when they were recording this record, he had a broken hand, and they didn't know if he'd be able to even play on it. And so he took off his cast and was icing it up the whole time when they were playing it. They thought he was going to have to replace him as a drummer, and I'm glad they didn't, because he's such a great drummer.
Wow.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just me and my friend Jody, who was a singer for my band. We'd be partying, drinking beers, and we'd sing this whole record. Like one of us would do the Cantrell, one would do the Lane Staley, do the whole record, and people got so sick of it because we just do it over, over and over, like 4 times in a row sometimes, because we just flipped it over and flipped it over. It's just crazy album. And like Sunshine, one of my favorites on here, a lesser known one. And this was actually the first grunge album in that category to be certified gold.
Oh,
It was,
cool.
Yeah, and then it eventually went on. It was double platinum, but this is before 10. It was certified gold. I think 10 was the second one, or maybe Nirvana. Never mind, one of them. But this was actually the first one that broke out from the grunge era. And stuff like when I first heard like It Ain't Like That, just had that almost Sabbath sound to it, the crazy groove. And they were actually told that Metallica sped up Tony Iommi, and that's what they got the riffs. It was like sped up Tony Iommi, and then Jerry Cantrell slowed it back down for this.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's just every time I hear this, every song I sing along. It seems like Sea of Sorrow is one of my favorites, of course, but I just love this album, and has a lot of memories in this one.
You know what? I love that story, Aaron. I could just picture you and your buddy, dividing the parts up and singing it right around in the car, maybe having a beer, maybe not. We know that's wrong. But what you mentioned that also, I didn't say anything when I did my Alice in Chains. It's funny how many Jerry Cantrell wrote so many of the lyrics also.
Yeah.
And you see that on those newer Alice in Chains records, which are also very good. I think, I'm not saying maybe they're as good, but you just see how much of the band is Jerry Cantrell. I mean, he's just an amazing guitar player, songwriter, singer. He just does it all.
And that's the thing. Him and Lane Staley together just had this unique thing, a magic between them. And they're still good, like I said. But it was just those two together, their harmonies together, and Lane Staley's just his vocals. I think him and Chris Cornell are the two best singers to come out of the grunge myself.
Oh yeah.
And that's really cool together.
I think they were the best singers, and I think that Scott Weiland was probably one of the best performers. When Stone Temple Pilots came out, it's kind of like this guy said, you know what? I'm not wearing flannel, and I'm not doing all this shit. I'm a androgynous David Bowie kind of character, and I want to be out here on front on the stage, and the way he moved around and everything when he sang, they were great too. I don't have any Stone Temple Pilots on my list, but they were great.
So one last thing I want to say about Alice in Chains is, so Facelift was such a huge album. Everybody owned it. We all loved it. Man in the Box was a huge hit. And the single soundtrack came out, if you remember, just like a few months before Dirt. And that song Wood became a big hit. And I just remember like everybody, like they used to release records at midnight, few kids. Like people would line up to get the album. So everybody's lined up to hear this. Get in the car, pop in the CD, and it starts off with just it goes full force right into it, like like Them Bones, like Them Bones, there's no like lead up. And I was watching a show called Lost in Vegas where they heard it for the first time, and they said that's the no lube effect. There's no foreplay, there's no lube. It's just. It's
I saw that episode too. Those guys are great. Yeah.
They just come in and they just start pounding you. And and that's the great thing about Alice in Chains is, they were unlike any other band.
True.
You knew it was going to get to this point at some point.
I waited for an hour into the video. I believe them bones on me.
What
I love
Serious. No, nobody's
Hey, Gary.
nobody's mentioned Jane's Addiction tonight.
I know. They were almost on my list.
Okay.
Gary's going to show Jane's Addiction.
No, you know what? I didn't even think of Jane's Addiction, but that could have made it.
Ritual de lo Habitual.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nothing shocking.
That's
Okay, my number 2 pick is Bloodletting by Concrete
Nice.
Blonde. This is from 1990. And I know, Aaron's got the album and everything. He's been listening to it. This is just one of those things. I will say, Chris, you're talking about these songs. You were in college during this time. So I'm a little bit older. And I think the 90s were probably the last time that I was like still actively trying to find new bands and new music and stuff, probably up until I got into the vinyl community. And now there's all these things coming up. But the bad thing is there's like all this old music too. You guys all talk about older bands. I'm like, oh yeah, I missed them first time around, but then there's newer bands. But anyway, I think this is a band that I stumbled across that was like one of the ones that I just fell in love with them. Between just the music is different. This album is, it's got like a little bit of metal in it. It's got rock, it's alternative, it's got slower songs. The single off of here, Joey, once again, if I was going to, if we were making a list of the top 5 songs of the 90s, Joey is going to be on it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it or not, but
Joey, I'm not angry yet.
there you go. Yeah, that one. I just think that the vocals, the words in it, there's nothing I don't love about this album. And I would recommend this to anybody. I mean, my kids are older than yours, obviously, because they're in their 20s. And they both like this. So I mean, it transfers well. And I know Aaron, he's a big metal guy and everything, but he likes this album. So I just think this is one of the best albums of the 90s is Bloodletting.
Especially that title song is so good. That's
Oh,
my
yeah.
favorite. It's amazing.
I like, and it's got a bit of a gothic tone to it at times, and it's just very cool.
I need to buy that album because Aaron's been talking about it for weeks since you got it
Yeah,
from
I
Jason.
need to get it too.
Yeah,
That's
that's
good.
I'm gonna put it on my want list as soon as this video is done.
Mexican Moon is another really good one too.
The whole album
I-
really grew up a lot when I'd only just heard it for the last couple of months, and every time I hear it, I like it more.
Well, you would like their album Mexican Moon also. If you like this one, you'd like that.
All right.
All right. Well, Chris stole a little bit of my thunder on this pick, but this one I know absolutely was released in the 1990s. I am going with the follow-up to Violator, Songs of Faith and Devotion.
Nice.
No, I might actually like this a little bit more than Violator. Basically, the story behind this is after the big success of Violator, Depeche Mode were known very much as a synth pop band. And a very good one, a dark synth pop band. But Dave Gahan said, I'm not interested in doing Violator Part 2. I don't want to do the synth pop thing like we've done. He pretty much gone through a total makeover in his life. He left his wife. He moved to Los Angeles. He started doing heroin. getting very much into drugs, listening to a lot of grunge, a lot of Neil Young, a lot of kind of harder edged bands. So he said, look, if we're going to get together and do another Depeche Mode album, it's to be harder. It's going to have to be different than anything we've done before. And this album, even from the very first single that came on the radio, I Feel You, was way different than anything. It's got a heavy guitar riff. It's got kind of a stomping beat, but in a way different from Personal Jesus. There is just everything about it. There's no drum machines on here. I think Alan Wilder actually learned how to play a drum kit for this album. So they use all organic instruments. There are some keyboards on here, but you got a full like string quartet for One Caress. Condemnation is a gospel song. Same with like Get Right With Me. It's fantastic. But it's just such a different album, but I think it's good as rewarding as Violator is, but in a different way. And I saw them on this tour as well. And I think there were only 3 of them because Andy Fletcher, for whatever reason, was not on this leg of the particular tour. But you could see Dave Gahan off stage, like chugging beer. He was totally kind of like out of his mind on, alcohol and drugs. He was just in a bad way at this point. Fortunately, he got sober for the next album, but it was definitely a dark period for him. And Martin Gore was the singer, or I should say, he was the songwriter for Depeche Mode. And a lot of the songs that he's writing about, I think, are reflective of what Dave Gahan was going through, like Walking in My Shoes. On the album after this, Ultra, Barrel of a Gun, you've got Martin Gore, his bandmate, writing about Dave Gahan's addictions, and then Dave Gahan having to sing about the song, sing the lyrics that Martin Gore has written about his addiction. So it's just a very interesting dynamic that they had going on in this band. But I think this is a fantastic album.
What was the title of that album again?
It's called Songs of Faith and Devotion.
Oh, okay.
It's really good.
Yeah, fantastic. And like you said, Jeff, it's so different than the rest of their catalog. I remember people that discovered the band because of MTV, like on that album. And I'd be like, oh man, it sounds so different, than their other stuff. And I'd play for them and they wouldn't believe me it was the same band. It's dramatic change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you think about, even just the album before, Enjoy the Silence. There's nothing like Enjoy the Silence on Songs of Faith and Devotion, or Policy of Truth for that. I mean, it's just a real stylistic shift that they did. But
great album, man.
All right. Well, I believe that this album came out in 1995. And let me hoist it up here. Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. This album I'm going to show tonight, vinyl, but it's a beast. Love it. And this has just always been my favorite album of the 90s. It's my favorite Smashing Pumpkins album. Somebody dubbed it the White Album of the 90s, and I back that up. And really the main reason, and again, I'm not comparing Smashing Pumpkins to the Beatles, but, we all know the White Album had varied musical styles on it. This album does as well. I mean, there's everything on here. You've got the hits Tonight, Zero, Bullet with Butterfly Wings, the song 1979, which was huge. But then you got the deeper cuts too, some longer proggy type stuff, some heavy guitar riffs. There's even some really mellow sort of folk-like tunes in it as well. So it's like all over the place, but it's like the perfect double album. And I just love the varied styles of it. I love the guitar tone in it. And I'm sure it's some sort of a concept record. I have no idea what the concept is, but I sort of get that vibe as well. And it'll always be my favorite album of the 90s.
1979, I think, could have almost been an outtake from the first Cars album.
Yeah.
Got that.
I love that
feel to it.
So good.
Yeah, just a great album.
It's a fantastic album. Definitely, you're right. Definitely one of the top albums of the 90s. I don't know why it's not on mine, but anyway, you've got it on yours. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So my number one's not going to surprise anybody that knows me. Most people know that I've talked about this album so much that it's probably painful for some folks, but it's Tom Petty Wildflowers. I really feel like I love all eras of Tom Petty. You guys know he's one of my favorite artists. But to me, this is his masterpiece. There's just not a bad song on it. A lot of people know the hits like Wildflowers or You Wreck Me or, You Don't Know How It Feels. Those were huge, massive hits, but every single song on this album is great. This is kind of his blood on the tracks. He was going through a divorce. His band was splintering. He had huge hit with Full Moon Fever. And then he tried to get the band back together, and that was kind of disastrous. Even though the album was really a big hit, Into the Great Wide Open, the band just wasn't really firing on all cylinders. And he got together with Rick Rubin. He wrote endless amounts of songs. And that's why they've expanded it, made it a double, triple vinyl that you can buy now. But the production on this album, it's probably, if you go buy the new version, this is the first pressing, but if you go buy the new version, it is sonically one of the best albums I've ever heard. Like when you put it on your turntable, the clarity in between instruments, the separation between instruments, the sound of his acoustic guitar, you could hear the strumming of his guitar. The only album that I have that comes close to it when it comes to an acoustic guitar performance in terms of on your turntable is August and Everything After. I have the acoustic sounds of that, Chris, if you ever get a chance to buy it. But yeah, go and buy this album, guys. It's fantastic. Every song is great. You will not be disappointed. Not a bad song.
I can't believe I forgot about that one too.
Yeah, You Don't Know How It Feels. Or I was like, oh, that's a drug song because he says, let's go roll another joint. Yeah. It's actually about blue balls.
But you know what? You think about that song, right? What I love about You Don't Know How It Feels is it's honest to be like, you do not know how it feels to be me. Like you might think you do, right? And some people think it's like, oh, it's great to be Tom Petty, right? Everybody loves Tom Petty. But nobody really truly knows what it's like to be him, what he's going through. Or the same thing for you, Jeff, or Chris, or Aaron, or Gary. Like we have this public facade and we all have our private facade. And I think it's a really powerful song, and the whole album is full of powerful songs. He's got a song in there, Only a Broken Heart. And I know, Jeff, you will love this song because you and me love the Broken Heart songs. And he's singing about his divorce and he's like, what would it take to start all over again, to clean up my mistakes? And it's like, okay, like that idea of being 40 or 35, whatever he was probably 40, starting over again. I think a lot of us have been there. It's fucking sucks, right? And he wrote a freaking beautiful song about it. Yeah, right there. Tom Petty Wildflowers.
This is the triple version.
Yeah. It sounds amazing, right?
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
Well, that the title track of that album is like just an amazing song itself. I mean, that's like one of his best songs, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. The whole album is full of songs like that, which is great.
He came out with a soundtrack for a movie, I want to say, after this.
She's the One.
Yep. Yeah, that had I forget the hit off that.
Walls. Some days are diamonds. Walls is their biggest like Beatles-esque, Monkees-esque song, I really feel. It's just a really poppy song. It showed that Tom Petty could go out there and write like a really poppy song. Yeah, amazing.
I want to change my choices. I can't forgot about this album.
You think that's Tom Petty's best album?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean, I love Damn the Torpedoes. And I love all of his albums. I love Echo, but Wildflowers is the most complete. Every song is perfectly crafted. Like Rick Rubin, they had so many songs to choose from. They could have made it a triple album. They could have made it, a giant box set. They only took the best songs. Do you know You Wreck Me was originally called, and Tom Petty said would never released it like this, but it was called You Rock Me, because he couldn't think of a word to go there instead of wreck. But he didn't want to fall into the 70s. Everything was rock and roll all night. Like, so he's like, I gotta find a different word. And Rick Rubin kept saying, like, dude, this is gonna be a huge hit. Just pick a friggin' word. Like, come on. And eventually he figured out Wreck Me. But I love that line where he's like, I'll be the boy
Yeah.
in the corduroy pants, you'll be the girl at the high school dance. It's like so like just amazing. It makes me feel like being back in high school, you know, going to those dances. Yeah. Like Aaron drinking some beers.
Actually, I don't really know it. I need to get
Michelle
that.
asked me once, like, were you one of those kids that drank when you were in high school?
Oh,
Yes. I was one of those kids.
Oh, yeah. Every
I couldn't
weekend.
remember whether this Peter, Paul, and Mary album came out in the 90s. I don't know.
No.
That was 98.
The first Peter, Paul, and Mary album? No. And I'm not joking. I've actually been listening to Peter, Paul, and Mary quite a bit. So.
Well, didn't you just get like a bunch of records of theirs or something?
I did, yeah.
Cool.
Eric Weinbender sent them to me.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron.
Well, this is going to be a huge surprise since my favorite band started in the 90s. I got
What?
masterpiece here. And this might be their best record they ever did. You ask any Clutch fan, it's at least in our top 3. It's just the title, it's the only album they did on Columbia Records, so they don't have the rights to it. Otherwise, they'd be re-releasing it. They might never be released again until they're out of that situation with Sony. And this was in 95. They put this out, this version, or not 95, 2015. They released it, but they probably won't re-release it again for a decade or something. And it's even hard to get. But the first song, the title song, Elephant Riders, is about an alternate history of like an alternate version of the Civil War, alternate history, where they use elephants instead of horses as the cavalry. And it's just such a unique song. And the Soap Maker's on here talking about making keeping rhythm with an old washboard. It's one of the best Clutch songs. Look those up. Muchas Veces, they sing a little Spanish in. It's got a little bit of jazz influence with Cracker Jack. It's an instrumental. They use a trombone. And in Muchas Veces, they use a little trombone. And it's just got amazing songs like The Yeti, Manitoba, and Himalaya, rhyming with those. It's just a very unique record. It's on double red wax. But, you know, you don't look at these guys and you don't think of them, they're going to be huge rockers, but this album is a beast. It's just, the song Wishbone, they're singing about like holidays you don't sing about, like St. Patrick's Day and Thanksgiving and going down in the basement and drinking whiskey. And it's just crazy, the lyrics. And Green Buckets, it's about garbage day, basically. And then the Dragonfly, it's just an amazing record. And I wish you guys could all get this, but it's really hard to find. I'd even get the CD if you could. If you like Clutch at all, you're gonna love this. It's maybe their best record.
Nice.
Ooh.
Well, I love Clutch because of you. I mean, Clutch rules.
Yeah.
Well, that one there, like they started out, they had kind of a punk element to them, and then this is the one where they kind of changed. Is the album that came out right after the self-titled one, and they had a little bit of they kind of reinvent themselves every record, but still maintain what they sound like. But this one here is where they first they started singing a little differently, more clean vocals type of thing, and any Clutch fan knows this is like one of the very top ones.
Awesome.
And actually there's 3 different bonus songs you can get. You never know which one you're gonna get. It's on the CD and the vinyl. And so the last song is like 12 and a half minutes, but it's only like a 5-minute song, and then a bonus song comes in at the end. And it's 1 of 3 songs. You don't know what you're gonna get. It's kind of a weird thing they did.
That's amazing.
Cool.
So technically you need to buy 3 copies of that record.
But you don't know if you I've had it on CD and on vinyl. I've had the song Op 5, it's 05 on both of mine. I've never got one with the song David Rose or Gifted and Talented, but you just never know. You can get the same one over and over, or you get the different one. And it's just like a crapshoot.
Wow.
It just kind of appears at the end.
Nice.
Pretty cool thing they did, but you guys would love this record. I'm telling you, it's amazing. Elephant Riders. I think it's one of Haggerty's top 2 of them too. He's a Clutch fan.
We gotta get Ron on here.
Yeah.
I love your passion for that band, Aaron.
Yeah.
I always, you know, seriously, when you have somebody that really loves an artist and they go on about it, I mean, you know, all you guys have different artists you like. I know JC, you talk about Neil Young a lot, and you know, I don't know, it's just nice to hear that because you can relate, whether you like that artist or not, or are familiar with them, you can relate to that passion. So my number one pick, I imagine you guys are probably too hip for this and you're going to roll your eyes, but that's okay. I went with from 96, Sheryl Crow. Her
Nice.
second album is just called Sheryl Crow. First of all, I love that album cover.
Yeah.
I went and seen Sheryl Crow on her first tour for the Tuesday Night Music Club. And at that point, I kind of barely knew her. You know, I only knew a couple songs, one of them being All I Want to Do Is Have Some Fun. And I went and seen her in concert, and then I really started listening to that album, which is all over the place. And I saw her in concert. I'm like, man, I really like this. I like this music. It's different. But I was also thinking, but, you know, I don't know her next album, what it's going to be like. You know, it could go downhill or whatever. And I remember driving, I was on my way up to Bowling Green. And that song, If It Makes You Happy, came on the radio. They released it before the album came out. And it was the first time I heard it. And I just, you know, remember hearing that strumming chord and the lines going up to it. And then it comes up that big chorus, you know, if it makes you happy and everything. And I just thought, you know what? I love this artist. You know, I can't wait to buy this album. I bought it. This is another one of those albums where I just, you know, it's a complete album to me. I listened to the whole thing. You know, she took a lot of crap on that first album. Some of the guys in the band who, you know, kind of tried to take credit, and they said, well, she didn't really write all this stuff and yada, yada, yada. And there were rumors going around. So the next album, those people were gone. She produced this album on her own. She wrote every song or co-wrote it with one person type thing. And she just, you know, she plays different instruments on it. And it's an artist taking charge. You know, this is like a statement album. I feel like she made this album saying, you know, no, I'm Sheryl Crow. You know, this is my band. Nobody holds my hand to do this shit. You know, she did it all on her own. And I just think it's a fantastic album.
Yeah,
I
she's
like
super talented.
She really is.
Yeah.
A few albums in the 80s, did vocals on a few of other artists' albums, and they never really said what it was.
Yeah, Eric
But,
Clapton, on Clapton's albums, I think, too.
Which one?
Yeah, she sang some background on stuff. And I know she toured like with Michael Jackson. She was a background singer with him. She did like a duet with him during the concert. Of course, her hair was all, you know, up like that and everything. I do remember, I want to share a real quick concert memory. So like I saw her twice on this tour, and I saw her up at Blossom Music Center, and I had pretty good seats, and she was doing the song Home, which is on this album. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a slower song and I love the lyrics to it. Well, it was one of those moments where, you know, she's singing. I closed my eyes. I was kind of singing along with her. And when I opened my eyes, she was looking right at me, and she just smiled because I had been singing her song with her. And I was like, hey, we just had a moment, Sheryl. And I'll remember. So that's my nerdy concert moment there.
That's killer when that stuff happens like that.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
That happened when I saw Lemmy at Motorhead. He and I.
I thought you were going to say when you saw Anne Murray.
It was during the Ace of Spades, and we connected. Yeah,
that would be the one to do it.
Yeah.
My funny concert story is I was front row back in the late 80s for Glenn Danzig, you know, like on the Danzig 2 or 3 tour or whatever. And he came down, he like grabbed my hand, like slapped me 5. Like I got home, I'm like, Dad, that was the most epic concert. He's like, yeah. I was like, Dad, I was in the front row, and I reached out, and Glenn Danzig grabbed my arm, and my dad said, son, you can tell me if you like dudes. I was like, I was like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, I've never seen you so excited to touch another man. I was like, thanks, Dad.
Josh is like, I'll never wash this hand again.
Never. Yeah. Glenn Danzig.
Yeah. All right. Well,
that could be a show too. Concert memories, you know.
Yeah,
moments.
absolutely.
All right. Well, my pick is going to come as no surprise to anybody. You know, just like you, Aaron, everybody's going to roll their eyes when I show it. But I got to go with this one. Fantastic album. And it's just a rare instance of, you know, an artist who burns so brightly for such a short period of time. This is the only studio album that he was able to record in his lifetime. He died very tragically before he could record his second album. But, you know, just like the Mother Love Bone album, there's so many, you know, references on this album to death. You know, he sings on the song Grace, I'm Not Afraid to Die. You know, the song So Real, he talks about, I couldn't awake from the nightmare. It sucked me in and pulled me under, which is exactly what happened to him when he drowned. There was a tugboat. He was wading into the Wolf River. A tugboat went by and he got sucked in underneath the water from the undertow. You know, and that's how he passed away. But just so many fantastic tracks on this album. So much emotion, so much pure, you know, energy and passion. He's got such an incredible voice. He was such a great singer and songwriter. And, you know, it's one of those, well, you know, what would he have gone on to do if he had lived? But, you know, there's a song on here, Dream Brother. It's the last track on the album. And, you know, a lot of people don't know really what the lyric is about, but basically there was a friend of his who was going through a divorce, who had kids. And Jeff Buckley's father was Tim Buckley, who was an absentee father, was never around, totally abandoned him. He saw him like 5 times during his entire life before Tim Buckley died of a heroin overdose. And so Dream Brother is him talking to his friend saying, don't be like the one who left me so old. Don't be like the one who, you know, left behind his name because I waited, you know, because they're waiting. Your kids are waiting for you like I waited for mine and nobody ever came. So that's what he's talking about in that song, is like, don't abandon your kids. You might be going through a divorce, but, you know, I've got all these scars because my dad, you know, never loved me. He was never around, and I always miss that. And so, you know, it's interesting, just, you know, that particular song. And yeah, I don't know. Hallelujah is a great Leonard Cohen cover on here, but just so many great moments. And, you know, he's got almost like a operatic song with Corpus Christi, Carol, which just shows you the range of his voice and how beautiful, how angelic. And then the very next song is Eternal Life, which is just like a hard thrashing, you know, kind of a track. But just really great. Ever since I heard this, it's always been one of my favorite albums of all time. Definitely my favorite of the 1990s.
Cool. Nice.
Love it.
Very cool.
Was he related to Andrew Wood? It sounds very similar. Their experiences like that.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, but yeah, very, you know, and it's because of the album before, his first album that he released, it was just a live EP album. They've since released an expanded version. You know, so there's that to check out if you like Grace and you want to like dig a bit deeper. I think Aaron, you got one of his live albums, like Mystery. I forget the name of it, but
Over there somewhere.
yeah, but, like Mystery White Boy or something like that.
Mm-hmm. It's got a lot of the songs from that album on it. It's good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, you got me into him. I like him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's our 6 picks from the 90s. And hopefully you've learned something today. Hopefully you've got some music that maybe you want to check out by buying or on Spotify or whatever streaming service you have. But had a lot of fun on this one. I feel like we kept it together a bit more than we did our last episode. So great job, guys. And as always, we'll be back next week with another interesting topic. So take care.